My stepdad caused a lot of problems for me. He believes that my stepbrother should be with my fiancé instead of me. Your dad passed away when you were 15, and although it was tough for you, your mom wasn't as affected since they weren't close at that time. At 17, you joined the military, and within a year of leaving home, your mom got married again. You and your stepdad didn't get along well due to different personalities. He often made hurtful comments and told you to toughen up when things bothered you. This caused arguments between you two, where both of you were sometimes at fault, but it didn't escalate too much. After nearly 5 years, you had to leave the military due to medical reasons. Your mom and stepdad welcomed you back home and offered to let you stay without paying rent until you found a job and got back on your feet. After being back home for about 3 days, my stepdad asked me, when we were alone, about what I thought would be a fair amount to pay for rent. I was a bit surprised, but since it was his house, we agreed on a fair rent. I didn't tell my mom about this conversation because I assumed he didn't want her to know since he never brought it up around her. I never asked for anything from them, not because I was mad, but because I wanted to handle things on my own. My stepdad had a son from a previous marriage, and although we didn't have many shared interests, we got along well. The only difference was that they provided a lot for him. They paid for his education, car, and living expenses throughout college and even afterward. He started college right after they got married, and I was only a bit older than him. I didn't want or need their help, but it bothered me that my stepbrother received so much support while I was immediately asked to pay rent. Anyway, I moved out after 3 months, and soon after, I met a girl I was really into and we started dating. It was my first serious relationship, and I was ecstatic the whole time, like in that honeymoon phase, but it lasted longer. I was nervous about introducing her to my family, especially my mom, who I was close to. I always worried she'd be overly critical of the girls I brought home. Luckily, my worries were unfounded. They got along really well. My girlfriend doesn't have much of a family, which is a long story, so my mom and stepdad became like family to her. They hit it off so well that they'd hang out, just the two of them sometimes, which made me really happy. Even my stepdad liked her a lot, and it brought us closer together, something I didn't realize I wanted until it happened. Your dad had a challenging upbringing and worked hard to put himself through school and land a well-paying job, which earned your immense respect. About a year into your relationship with your girlfriend, you felt certain she was the one you wanted to marry. When you shared this with your mom and stepdad, they were thrilled because she was already like family to them. Your mom even gave you her engagement ring to propose with, which your girlfriend cherished. When you proposed and she loved the ring, it made you incredibly happy. You started planning the wedding, and for the first time, your mom and stepdad offered to help financially, which meant a lot to you. 3 months later, your stepdad called and asked you to come over, which felt ominous. When you arrived, your mom, stepdad, stepbrother, and fiancé were there. Your fiancé looked upset, and you thought someone had passed away. As you moved to comfort her, your stepdad stopped you and accused you of cheating on her throughout your entire relationship. This left you baffled because you only texted her and no other women unless they were family. It turned out that a girl had gotten your fiancé's number and claimed that you two had been having an affair for over a year without your fiancé knowing you were in a committed relationship. She even sent screenshots of alleged conversations and personal details about you that a stranger wouldn't know. It must have been incredibly painful to go through all of that. You were shocked, hurt, and angry when your stepdad accused you of cheating, and despite your efforts to prove your innocence, things only got worse. Your plea for your fiancé to look at your phone went unheard amidst the tears and chaos. Being escorted out of the house and then being cut off completely from them left you feeling devastated. You spent weeks trying to reach out, but all your attempts were met with silence or rejection. Eventually, your stepdad made it clear that you were not welcome in their lives anymore. The only communication you received from your mother was a text expressing her sadness and disappointment. It must have been especially hard since your mom didn't have much family, and holidays were typically spent with your stepdad's side of the family. Everyone rejected me, including my own family. I saw pictures of them celebrating Christmas on Facebook, and my ex-fiancé was still part of it, looking happy. It hurt me deeply. The only relatives who would talk to me were my dad's brother and his family, but even they seemed cautious around me. My uncle was the only one who truly believed me. He supported me like a father, and I'm incredibly grateful for him. After about 6 months, I decided to leave the East Coast and move to California to escape everything. Nearly a year later, I received a call from an area code back home, which was rare. It turned out to be my stepbrother, but I hung up on him right away. He called me again, and although I initially ignored it, I couldn't shake it off. I decided that if he called back, I'd answer. Later that night, he did, and our conversation was awkward. He mentioned that my ex-fiancé was deeply affected for a long time and took almost a year to start dating again. I hadn't moved on since our breakup. After a few months of her dating, my stepdad encouraged my stepbrother to ask her out. They went on a few dates, but it didn't really click. My stepbrother confided in my stepdad about it, and my stepdad foolishly advised him, "I didn't break up with him for no reason. She's a great girl, you should work things out with her." I felt like collapsing, but anger quickly took over. It turned out that my stepbrother had convinced someone, I still don't know who, to pretend to be someone I had an affair with. They faked screenshots of messages and sent them to my fiancée. My stepbrother confessed that he had learned about this a month ago and didn't know what to do. He was so bothered by it that he couldn't keep his secret any longer, so he called me to let me know he was going to tell my mom and fiancé the next day. He wanted to know what to say about me. I asked him not to contact me immediately after they talked and to give me some time to process everything. Last Tuesday, I texted my stepbrother and said I was ready to talk to my mom and fiancé if they wanted to. I told them they could call me the next day. I don't know what I'm going to say or what to expect from them. I think there will be tears, lots of apologies, and other things to discuss. I'm not sure if I'm ready to forgive them yet. The only person I've talked to about this is my uncle, and I asked him to keep it private. Sorry for the long story. My therapist is on vacation this week, so I needed to get this off my chest. Update. I'll post a detailed update tonight. No calls from anyone else yet, but I had a good call with my stepbrother, which felt nice. Thanks for all the support. I'll try to respond to all the comments when I can. Update. On February 6, 2023, my stepdad turned my family against me. Sorry for the delay in updating. I've had a busy day at work and a lot on my mind. My stepbrother called me this morning and explained what happened last week. It seems my stepdad didn't tell me the whole truth. My stepbrother was careful with his words to avoid implicating himself, but made it clear what happened. He's cleverer than me in these matters. Instead of confronting my mother and fiancé right away and potentially arguing with his dad, my stepbrother took a different approach that surprised me. He managed to track down the girl who sent those fake messages. It took him a while, but he eventually got in touch with her and arranged to meet in public. That's where everything came to light. It turned out that she had matched with my stepfather on Tinder, suggesting he had been unfaithful to my mom. This discovery angered me even more for obvious reasons. The girl claims they didn't actually sleep together, but to me that detail didn't matter. What mattered was that my stepbrother talked to her and made her realize the impact of her actions. She may have known what she was doing initially, but hearing about my situation seemed to shake her up. However, regardless of her intentions or actions, it didn't change the situation for me. She explained to him what had happened. She was paid $1,000 for making the fake phone call with the story he provided and the evidence pictures he gave her. She called my mother and ex-fiancé and shared everything. My stepbrother even offered to pay her again, but she agreed to do it for free. This happened yesterday. Since my stepfather was away on a business trip until Wednesday, it was just the four of them there when she revealed the truth to my mom and ex. My stepbrother mentioned that tears started flowing almost immediately from all three of them after hearing the truth. I was in California, and my stepbrother promised to inform them only when I was ready to be contacted, which was before I texted him. To help you understand a bit more about my mom and ex-fiancé, not to excuse their actions, but for context, my mom and I were very close after my dad passed away. We were like a support system for each other. However, when I turned 16, I started drinking to cope with the pain. One New Year's Eve when I was 16, I had promised to spend it with my mom but ended up getting drunk with my friends instead. After that night when my mom spent it alone at home, things between us were never quite the same. She texted me about how sad she was, and it hit me hard. I stopped drinking that day. My mom is the type who always needs someone around. She struggles with being alone. When her love with my dad started to fade, I filled that void. Then, as I grew up and moved out, my stepfather filled that void. As for my ex, she never had much family and had trust issues from past relationships. Despite this, she never spoke badly about her exes, except for one who was physically abusive, which is understandable. Despite being very shy, I've been told I'm cute, especially by younger girls, meaning younger than me, not children. I never liked that label as it didn't feel very masculine, but I learned to appreciate my youthful appearance and blushing. My fiancé is a bit older than me, and I've always been attracted to older women. I never paid much attention to younger girls who liked me, which sometimes bothered my fiancé. She'd ask why I wasn't interested in them, why I didn't choose someone younger and prettier. I always reassured her that I found her extremely attractive and that I didn't care about anyone else. This background might give some context to why they acted the way they did, but it doesn't excuse their actions, and I'm not particularly understanding about it personally. At the end of the call with my brother, he mentioned that they both wanted to call me that day. I agreed, but as time passed, I started to get confused and worried. By 3:00 p.m., I began to wonder if my brother had made everything up to mess with me. It was a concerning thought. He texted me to check if I was okay, and I asked if they were actually planning to call. He explained they had been trying for hours, but I had blocked their numbers when I moved away and forgot why I had blocked my brother. Luckily, I unblocked them both, and about 10 minutes later, my mom called. The first thing she noticed was that I sounded different. I almost hung up, but I managed to respond. She started crying immediately. I expected to feel more emotions, but the pain of everything overwhelmed me more than her words did. She asked if I had received her texts, but I hadn't because I had her number blocked. She had been trying to reach out over the past year. I know it may sound harsh, but I believe if she truly wanted to contact me, she could have found a way. I told her I was open to rebuilding some kind of relationship over time, and she was happy with that. She also mentioned she was taking her essentials out of the house before my stepfather returned, and that she would be filing for divorce immediately. I believe her because she's not one to do things halfway. While I don't see her as a good mother, I respect her determination. I wish I could be there to witness my stepfather's reaction when he returns to an empty house. My ex-wife spoke next and apologized tearfully, just like my mom did. I felt more emotional with her. I reminded her of all the times I promised never to hurt her and how much I loved her. She was very upset, and I'm glad we had a pleasant half-hour conversation. Despite telling myself for over a year that we were done, I found myself thinking there might still be hope for us. However, when she mentioned she still had the engagement ring, I felt upset. I asked her to give it to my mom since it no longer belonged to either of us. It hurt her deeply, and although I felt selfish, I also wanted the ring back. She asked if she could call or text me, and I said it was okay, but I might not respond quickly. I gave her a similar ultimatum as I did with my mom, although I made it clear that the chances of us having a future together were slim. She understood that too. I spoke to my brother last and thanked him for all his help. He was assisting my mom in moving her things out of my stepfather's house. He apologized for everything that had happened and mentioned he would inform the rest of the family too. However, I don't have any connection with them and won't be in touch with them. There's one exception though, my stepdad's mother, who is the oldest person in either family. She has been kind to me, wishing me happy birthday and Merry Christmas over the past year. Maybe she doesn't care much due to her age, or perhaps she felt sorry, but I'll talk to her, which seems a bit strange. I apologize for rambling. I'll be flying home for my uncle's 60th birthday in the first week of March. It'll be my first time back home since I moved out here. I'll definitely plan to meet my brother as well. While I'm not against seeing my mom and ex, I've made it clear to them that I need time to heal, and they do too. If anything else significant happens, I'll provide an update, possibly after my trip home, but that's all for now. Also, I won't be active on social media much from now on. I haven't been using this platform much in the past year because of personal reasons, as you might guess. I haven't come across stories similar to mine in the comments, but I'm open to reading them if you can find any. I'm willing to answer questions about my experience to the best of my knowledge. Thank you, everyone. A quick update on February 8th. I received a call from a number back home. I had deleted most numbers I wasn't in contact with some time ago. I answered, and it was my stepfather. I hung up and blocked the number immediately. After that, I called my mom, fiancé, and brother to make sure they were safe. My mom is staying at a hotel that he doesn't know about. My fiancé and brother are at their homes and feel safe. My stepfather isn't known to be violent, but we're taking precautions just in case. My brother mentioned he received a call from him this morning when he realized my mom wasn't there and didn't answer. My brother informed him about what happened and told him not to contact any of us. I'm not sure how long he stayed, but he called me around 3:00 p.m. Pacific time, about an hour ago. I received a message from a different number saying we need to talk. I assume it's him. I haven't responded yet. That's the latest update in brief. On the 29th, my stepdad's mother called me. I had her number saved from before because of what I mentioned earlier, and I was a bit worried it might be him trying to gather information or something. But it wasn't. She's a very kind lady who didn't have to be nice to me at all but showed me compassion. She was very pleasant and wished me well while also apologizing on behalf of the family. I thanked her and wished her the best too. It's surprising he came from such a kind woman. Update on the situation. Apologies for the delay, everyone. Work has been keeping me busy, and I just returned home this past weekend. I hesitated before responding to the message, which turned out to be from my stepfather after all. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to call him. I followed the advice of some and recorded the call using a different app. However, I didn't gain much from the call. Hearing his voice made me uncomfortable. He asked how I was, and I called him out on his insincerity, to which he laughed. There was nothing incriminating in our conversation, just small talk for about 3 minutes. I did question him about why he wasn't happy with me being with my fiancée. He responded that I wasn't man enough and that she deserved someone better. It showed his traditional views on relationships, which ironically revealed how little he knew about our relationship or my fiancé. Moving on, my ex is quite opposed to traditional gender roles. She has a high-paying job and made it clear she wouldn't feel comfortable being a stay-at-home mom. She often took the lead in our relationship. As for the call with my stepfather, there wasn't much substance to it. I don't know what he hoped to achieve, but I made it clear I didn't want any more calls from him and ended the conversation. I returned home before the weekend and attended my uncle's birthday celebration. It was a pleasant time, and my family was welcoming and apologetic for not being more supportive earlier. They were never disrespectful. I harbor no ill feelings toward any of them. I spoke with my brother and arranged a meeting at his place with my ex and mother for Wednesday night. During the meeting on Wednesday, emotions ran high as expected. There were tears and apologies, and I struggled to keep my composure. I had individual conversations with my ex, my mother, and my brother. My mother has taken the step of filing for divorce, which I see as a positive move, and I appreciate her initiative. Our conversation was decent, although it felt somewhat awkward, but I believe we're making progress in healing our relationship. My brother and I had a meaningful discussion, and it was good to connect in person. He expressed remorse for what happened and the effort he's making to make things right. I've forgiven him. Holding on to grudges isn't productive. Overall, it was a step towards healing for all of us. My ex and I had a lengthy conversation that lasted most of the night during our meeting. We had been talking over the phone for the past couple of weeks already. A big part of our conversation was catching up because we've both changed a lot in the nearly year and a half since we were together. Later on, we had some deeper discussions about everything that happened, acknowledging how messed up it was and how much it affected me. She mentioned she had already started seeing a therapist and asked if I would be willing to join her for her appointment on Thursday. She has been incredibly supportive and understanding in recent weeks, going above and beyond what I expected. I accompanied her to the therapy appointment, and it turned out to be very beneficial for both of us. Her therapist also appreciated my presence. We continued talking afterward, and I felt comfortable asking her if she wanted to go out together on Saturday night. That's the plan for now, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure what will happen, but I wanted to show her that I appreciate her efforts to mend what's been broken. Also, I selfishly wanted to spend time with her in a different setting than we've been in recently, so that's the update for now. Things are looking up, and I haven't seen any of my stepdad's family since returning home. Thank you all for your support. I'll update with any new developments. Update on the 35th. The date went really well. We had a nice evening together, had dinner, and went to an arcade, something we used to do often. It was my first date in almost a year and a half, and I had a great time. We talked at her place afterward. We plan to discuss our next steps this week before I go back to California. The long-distance aspect will be challenging, but I think it'll help us see things clearly. Thanks again for all the support. Update on July 10th. Many people wanted to know what's been happening, thanks to TikTok. I've kept in touch with my brother, mom, and ex. My brother and I talk regularly. My relationship with my mom is getting better, although it will take time for things to fully mend. I'm happy she's back in my life. My ex visited me in California, but we're not together right now, and I believe it's for the best. As for my ex-stepfather, I don't know what he's up to. He tried to reach out to my mom a few times, but they didn't talk. He hasn't contacted me, and I'm grateful for that. I hope I never have to see him again. Life updates. I moved back east for a new job, still a few states away from my family, which I think is good for now. Feel free to ask any more questions. Thanks for all the support during this crazy time.